Now you are back stuck with me, right? So you should have had a notification. Okay, today we are going to start with a new chapter. This chapter is about volume studies. It is chapter 10 from your textbook. So we have already talked about volume previously as well. In the previous chapters, we have talked about volume. So we know many things about it. So volume is used for design. Whenever you're designing any highway or a part of the highway or a control device for the highway, you must know about the volume. Which volume we are talking about? The existing as well as projected. Projected means future volume. So you must know the current volume as well as the future volume. And the volume is taken for the peak hour of a typical day. Typical means normal, routine, something which happens every week. And we are taking the peak hour. Okay. Now the terms which are important related to design, important for traffic engineers are volume, rate of flow, demand, and capacity. So from the previous knowledge, we know a few of them. Actually, we know all of them. How do we define volume? What is volume? Can somebody tell me what is volume? Yes, anyone? In the break, everybody was asking me how do we get the volume? How do we get the volume? Must know what is volume. What is volume? Hmm? Actually, the answer is on the slide itself. What is volume? It's written on the slide.
Number of
How many
vehicles
cars in
crossing
the
the
lane
unit
in a
time.
certain time?
How many cars in? Yes, say again.
Number of vehicles crossing per unit time.
Number of vehicles per unit time, and the time is normally 1 hour. For design, we use the time double as 1 hour. Okay, and what is rate of flow? What is rate of flow? Flow rate, rate of flow. What is it?
Not an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, that's it. You take for less for 15 minutes, and that's the rate of flow. That is flow. If you just take the value for 15 minutes, that is flow, and then you convert it to 1 hour. Yeah, you convert it to 1 hour, that is rate of flow. Okay. So the other terms are demand, capacity, demand, number of vehicles which desire to go through the highway. Capacity is the maximum number of vehicles that can go through the highway, and the units are vehicles per hour, passenger cars per hour. It can be vehicles per hour per lane or passenger cars per hour per lane as well. Now, volume changes because of demand, changes in demand. The demand for the highway does not remain the same. So the changes in demand can be because of time of the day of the week, month or season of the year, or in response to singular events. For example, if you observe volume on different times of the day, you will not find it to be the same because people like to travel in different times according to their activities. Same thing for the day of the week as well. On weekends, you are going to a different place. On weekdays, you are going to a different place. So the demand of the highway changes. Month or season of the year, for example, during summer, okay, the demand may be different, especially during summer vacations. The demand would be different as compared to other months of the year. Singular events like National Day, events like Formula One. I'm trying to give examples from therein. Okay. So these events may produce demand for the roads which are around uh, that area where the event is happening, which is not repeated in the other times of the year. Okay, so Formula One happened once. Okay, so it doesn't mean the same week sorry, in the next week you will have the same demand. Okay, if there is no other Formula One, the same demand will not be repeated. Okay, National Day comes once in a year. So the events, so the locations where the National Day events were happening, the demand will be changed in those areas and not in the others. And the same demand will not be observed in the next month. Okay, because there is no National Day next month. Okay, unless you guys plan that we will have a National Day every month. Other events can be construction detours, diversions. Detours means diversions because of construction activities, accidents or other incidents happening, or severe weather events like we have dust storm, sandstorms. In other countries, they have heavy rainfall, snowfall as well. Okay, so these severe weather events can also change the demand and volume. The point here is the volume or demand has many sources of variations. Demand and volume have many sources of variations. It can change because of many reasons. Okay, so if there was a single reason, then you may have estimated what will be the change in demand, what will be the change in volume. But since the reasons and the sources are so many, there is very little chance that you can know the exact volume in advance. Okay, you can predict the actual volume in advance. So now people are going for modern technologies to help in this matter. Okay, so we have technologies, sensors and detectors which can be installed on the roads, and these sensors and detectors collect real-time data, and this data can be transferred to the control center again on real-time basis. So you can manage traffic, manage the demand on the basis of actual data of that time itself. Okay. So these devices and technologies are known as intelligent transportation systems. Intelligent transportation systems are those technologies which collect data in real time and also help to manage the traffic on real-time basis. So you have electronic boards, detectors, sensors, websites and mobile applications from which you can inform the drivers about accidents and construction activities and so on. Then we have few examples. Actually, not a few. There are so many. This is an example in which they are showing you the hourly variation in traffic volume for different types of highways and on different days of the week. So the first one is for an intercity route. The second one is for a recreational route. Recreation means it is going towards a relaxation point, a picnic point, or a park or something like this. And the last one is for a normal local road. Okay, like normal roads within the urban area. So for the intercity route, you can see the lines which are showing the weekends are higher, and the peak is in this time of the day, which is afternoon to evening, and normally the weekend traffic is higher than weekdays because people travel to other cities during those times and days. Okay, for recreation route, you can see the evening, there's only one major peak which is in the evening time. Okay, and again the weekend traffic in that peak is higher as compared to weekdays because normally people go for recreation activities on the weekends. But for the local route, this is the other way around. We have two peaks. First of all, one in the morning time, one in the evening time, because morning people are going from house to work, evening they are coming back. So we have two peaks. And the weekend traffic is lower usually than weekday traffic because on urban areas, more traffic is generated because of businesses and commercial activities, so which happens on the weekdays. Then this figure, you can see the variation in traffic for different times of the day on different sites. Okay, so you can see three lines here for each site. The middle line, which is the bold line, is showing you the average traffic for that hour. So they collected traffic for the same hour on different days, and then they calculated the average for that hour, and then we have a range as well. Okay, so you can see minimum and maximum for each hour as well. Okay, so you can see even if you have the same site and you are looking for the same time, even in that case, the traffic does not remain same on different days of the week. You can see there's a difference. There's a significant difference, a very visible difference between the average and the minimum and maximum for each hour. I mean, for almost all hours of the day. Okay, so traffic varies on the same time of the day on different days of the week as well for the same site. And then you can see again this site has one peak in the evening, but the other sites have normally more distributed traffic. You can see peaks in the morning and the evening both times. Okay, so the other sites can be for normal urban routes, while this one can be for a recreational route. Okay, the information is not given, but I'm just guessing on the trend. Then in this figure you can see the variation in percentage of traffic of peak hour compared to AADT. Now what is AADT? Can somebody tell me? AADT stands for what? AADT.
Annual daily something demand.
Annual daily, okay.
Demand traffic.
Demand traffic. He said daily.
Annual daily traffic.
Average daily traffic. Average or annual?
Annual average daily traffic.
Good.
Oh, average annual daily traffic.
Yeah, average annual daily traffic. Okay, so you have the average of daily traffic for the whole year, and then you calculate for each hour of the year the percentage of traffic, percentage of daily traffic coming in that hour. Okay, percentage of daily traffic coming in that hour. Okay, so you calculate it for each hour of the year, then you arrange the hours in descending order. So the hour which has the highest percentage is on the top, the hour which has the lowest percentage is at the bottom, and then you plot it like this. So the percentage is on the y-axis and the hour is on the x-axis. So as I said, 0 hour means the hour which had the highest percentage, and the 200 means the hour which has the lowest percentage. Okay, now there are 4 lines showing 4 different types of highways. The top one is for recreational, second one is for main rural, so maybe a rural arterial or a rural collector. Then the last 2 are for urban highways. Okay, the last 2 are for urban highways. Now you can see the lines for urban highways are almost straight. Okay, and you can see it from here as well. Percentage for the first hour 7%, 30th hour 7%, 100th hour 6%, 200th hour 6%. So the difference between the first and the 200th hour is not much. So the line is almost straight line. Okay, same for both urban areas. For both urban highways, it is the case. For the other 2 highways, you can see some differences, especially in this region. The first and 30th hour, you have 3 to 4% difference, and 30th and 100th again, there's a lot of difference. Now, for urban areas, it's not a problem which hour should be taken for the design. You take the first hour or 30th hour or 100th hour, 200th hour, doesn't matter, because the percentage is almost the same. You'll be designing for the same percentage of traffic. For these 2 highways, normally we select the 30th hour. We take the percentage which is in the 30th hour. Why? If you take the highest value, that highest value is for 1 hour of the year. Any particular hour of that year in which the traffic was so high. For the other hours, it was very low as compared to this one. So if you design for the highest hour, that means you are overestimating. You are basing your design on an hour which has chance of occurring only in the peak, only in 1 hour of the year, and that is also random. Maybe in future you may not have that percentage. Something which has happened only once in a year has very little chance of happening again in the next year. Okay, so we try to avoid the first few hours of the year which have the high percentages. Okay, so this region is what we are trying to avoid. Can we take the lowest value? Absolutely not. It doesn't make any sense, right? Taking the lowest value doesn't make any sense. Lowest value means you are designing for lowest traffic. Not possible, right? Not logical. You can take average value. Average means you will be somewhere in the middle. Middle means you are ignoring half of the curve. You're ignoring almost half of the data, which is also not good. So what we do is we select the 30th hour, which is somewhere here. 30th hour is somewhere here. Okay, so you are taking most of the points of the curve. You are taking this whole region, which is straighter and smoother, but you are avoiding this steep part of the curve. We are trying to avoid this because this will result in overestimating. So taking 30th will cover the smooth or the normal part of the curve, the majority of the curve, but will avoid the first few steep hours of the curve. Okay, so you are avoiding overestimating. So like I said, taking 30th hour is normal. If you do it for rural areas or for recreational highways, it will have some significant difference in your values. Or for urban highways, it's not much different. Take the first hour or the last hour, there's not much difference there. See, first hour 10%, 200th hour 9%. First hour 7%, 200th hour 6%. So there's not much difference here. Okay. This graph is showing you the sub-hourly fluctuation. So you have the time on the x-axis and the flow rate on the y-axis. Flow rate. So like I said earlier, flow rate is when you take the value for less than 1 hour, then you convert it to 1 hour. So for example, each bar in this graph is showing the flow rate for 5 minutes. So the value was taken for 5 minutes and then converted to 1 hour. Now if you want to convert 5 minutes to 1 hour, you will multiply by 12, right? 1 hour has 12 5 minutes intervals. So each value for each bar, I took the value for 5 minutes and multiplied by 12 to get these bars. Okay, and you can see the variation in the bars is a lot. Okay. See, from each 5 minutes, like you don't have any 2 5 minutes for which the bars are exactly the same. Okay. Then we have these lines as well. These lines are showing the flow rates for 15 minutes. So the value was taken for 15 minutes and multiplied by 4, right? Because 1 hour has 4 15 minutes interval. So again, you can, if you compare the flow rate of 15 minutes to 5 minutes, you can see a lot of variation. Just give me a second. Okay, so I was saying that we are taking the flow rates for the same time period. You see, so this bar is from 7:05 to 7:20, 7:05 a.m. to 7:20 a.m. It's the flow rate. Now, if you see the 5 minutes flow rate in the same time period, they are a lot different from this bar, right? These two are a lot higher, and this one is very low as compared to the bar. So if you keep on going deeper, or if you keep on, going to a smaller time interval, the fluctuation is a lot more. Okay. As I said, even if you change the scale of your time, you can see the variation. And you can see the dotted line. Dotted line is the actual volume for 1 hour. So this is from 7:20 to 8:20. And you can see from 7:20 to 8:20, the bars and the lines, other 15-minute flow rate lines, are a lot different from the actual volume. They are a lot different from the actual volume. So this is why we said earlier, again going back to the previous topics, we said earlier that you must take the sub-hourly fluctuation into account, because if you have taken just volume 1630 beakers per hour, then you are ignoring all these variation. See, this one is going above 2000 flow rate. This one is as low as 1400. So you cannot ignore this much fluctuation in traffic. Okay, so traffic varies even within the hour, and if you have a smaller time intervals, you can see a lot more fluctuation. Okay, now this figure is showing you traffic in different days of the week for different highways. Okay, so on the x-axis you have, on the x-axis you have days of the week. On the y-axis you have percentage or daily traffic as a percentage of total weekly volume. So you can see we have an average value for the whole week. Obviously this will remain same. This is like an ADT. Okay. Then the bold line is for urban freeway, suburban freeway. So you can see higher volume on weekdays and lower volume on weekends. Okay, makes sense. Urban areas, more traffic during weekdays because of businesses and other activities. Then this one, the black dotted line, recreational routes. Okay, routes going to picnic areas, parks, beaches. So very high traffic on weekends, very low traffic on weekdays. Again, makes sense, right? And this one is for intercity route, rural route, which are connecting different cities. So it is higher in the like towards the end of the week. So Thursday, Friday. Again, we are talking about week from the American point of view. Okay, USA. So weekend is Saturday, Sunday. Okay. So you travel from one city to other city, normally towards the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, and so on. Okay, so you can reach there at the weekend, right? Then this is showing you variation in different months. The first two, you can see two lines here. The dotted line again for recreation route, summer event influenced arterial, and the bold line is for urban arterial. So you can see urban arterial, normally the traffic is a lot more uniform in all months of the year. Okay, but for the summer event influenced arterial, it is higher in summer, right? That's why we are calling summer influence, right? So higher in summer. Okay, in both cases you can see it. Okay, and this one, the last two for a specific highway, but for different days. So we have the average annual daily traffic ADT. Okay, the first figure is for recreation route. The second one is for intercity traffic route. Okay, so for recreation route, you can see lower traffic on Saturdays, on average weekday, and higher traffic on weekends for all months of the year. And traffic is a lot higher in winter. I don't know, maybe because of winter vacation. And again, you can have another peak in the summer as well. Okay. Then for intercity, you can see one thing which is very obvious, that the traffic is like the weekend and weekday traffic is very close to each other. In all months of the year, the weekend and weekday traffic is very close to each other. There is some variation. That's why you have the ADT line. ADT line is obviously a straight line. ADT is the straight line, one value, and you can see the actual traffic is still going above and below ADT. So there is some variation, but the variation is less. On intercity route, in different months of the year, the variation is less. So these were some examples. Okay, now we will talk about intersection volume studies. I have mentioned earlier that intersection volume studies are done manually. Now you will know the reasons as well. The reason for doing intersection studies manually is to know the movements precisely. Okay, if you do it using a sensor or detector, so for example, I'm doing it for this direction and I put a sensor here. Okay, sensor will tell me, okay, a vehicle has come in this direction. It cannot tell me whether the vehicle is going straight or it is taking a left turn or maybe taking a right turn. So a sensor cannot tell me exactly where this vehicle went after it crossed the stop line. Observing it manually is a lot easier and a lot more accurate. Okay, but to do that, you have to position the observer in the correct manner. So if you want to position or you want to assign an observer who will count the vehicles who are turning left, but you are putting this observer on this side of the road. Now from this side of the road, how can he observe these vehicles? Now you may say, okay, there is no obstruction here, he can count them easily, he can see these vehicles easily. Yes, he can, but what will happen if there's a big truck in this lane? This big truck can block the line of sight of the observer. Okay, so it is a lot more convenient and more logical for this observer to be placed on this side of the road. Okay, or sometimes on intersection you will see that in the middle they have an island. If it's a roundabout, then there's an island for the roundabout. If it's a signal, then you will see there's the pole of the signal. Around the pole, there's a free area, okay, as like a curve area, which is like an island. So you can place the observer on this island as well. So on the island, he can exactly see in front of him where the vehicle is turning left, okay. So place the observer in a position from where he can see the desired vehicles clearly. There's less obstruction, there are less chances of obstruction to his line of sight because of any other vehicle or because of any other object. Now this observer or any observer who is counting volume at the intersection is counting the volume which is leaving the intersection. And now you can relate to it from the first point as well, because until the vehicle leaves the intersection, I cannot know its direction. When the vehicle comes, as I said, it will come to a lane. From that lane, it may go straight, it may go left, it may go right. So I will know where the vehicle is going exactly when it leaves the intersection. Leaving the intersection means when it crosses the stop line. Leaving the intersection means when it crosses the stop line, or it can also mean that when it has made the turn which it wanted to make. So now you have exactly seen that this truck is turning towards right. It has made the full turn. Now you can count it as the right turning vehicle. Okay, or the vehicle has crossed the stop line and you have seen now it is going straight. You will count it then. So it's accurate and it's easier because you know the exact direction of the vehicle, and it's easier also because you know from where to count. You know the point at which you will know you will see the vehicle turning. Okay, so you know the observation point is a fixed point, and you know the direction of the vehicle. Now, if you have an inexperienced observer, somebody like you, who is doing it for a term project, as a student, so you have not done traffic studies earlier, right? So you are inexperienced. For inexperienced observers, you may assign them one major movement or two minor movements. Now keep one thing in mind, at an intersection we have many movements happening at the same time or different times, whatever, but there are many possible movements at the intersection. From each approach you can go right, left, or straight, or U-turn, or so on. From each approach all these things are possible. So if you feel the observer is inexperienced, you ask, and there is a movement on which the volume is very high, then you may ask that observer to count only that movement and leave the others to other observers. Or for this inexperienced observer, you can tell him, okay, count these two movements if both movements have very low volume. Okay. So if you give him only one movement, which is a major movement, so the volume is high, but all vehicles are going in the same direction, so it is easier for him to note down. If you give him two major movements, then vehicles will be going simultaneously in different directions, and the volume is high, so they will be moving very fast, or he has to note down very fast, and it will be difficult for him. Two minor movements, very easy. So he is counting two movements, maybe right and straight, but in both the movements the volume is so low that very rarely we have, very seldomly we have two vehicles passing at the same time for both the movements. So still he can manage. Okay, if the volume for both the movements is very low, he can manage. Okay. If you have movements which are happening in multiple lanes simultaneously, so you have straight movement which is happening from 2 or 3 lanes simultaneously, and the volume in all lanes is very high. You have approach which has multiple lanes and the volume in all lanes is very high, then you may go for assigning single lane to each observer. You may go for assigning single lane to each observer. What is the benefit of that? The benefit is from each lane the observer will only have one vehicle passing at a time. So the problem of simultaneous passing of the vehicle will not be there. First, this is the main advantage here. Okay. And if you remember, we did an example in one of the previous chapters where we had 2 lanes in each direction, and the observers were used in this manner. One observer was counting vehicle in one lane at a time. Okay, so your life becomes easier. So even if there is high volume, it's not a problem for any of the observer because he is counting just one lane, and one lane means one vehicle at a time. Okay, now whether you go for one lane, if you go for one lane for each observer, then you must have one observer for each lane, right? So if you have 3 lanes in each direction, you need 3 observers in each direction then. Okay, so you need more observers if you are assigning lanes to the observers. Okay, then how to reduce the number of observers? Even if you don't assign the lanes, if you are assigning movement to the observers, on intersection you need many observers. On an intersection you need many observers because, as I said, one approach has multiple movements, one vehicle going in different directions. So you need many observers. Okay, so how to reduce the requirement of the observers? Again, you have to go back to that example which we solved in the traffic data collection chapter. What they did over there, they assigned alternating counting periods to different observers in different lanes. So the observer was counting 10 minutes in lane 1, then he had a break, and then he shifted to the next lane in the next 10 minutes. Then another break, then next 10 minutes in the other lane, and so on and so forth. So you will have one observer who is counting multiple lanes but in different times. Okay, and then later on you can find the missing flow rate, and you can expand the count using the methods which we have discussed. Okay, so you need a lot of observers to take accurate counts on intersection, and to reduce the number of observers, you can go for giving short breaks to the observers and making them count in different movements or different lanes in alternating periods. Now, as I said earlier, the volume which you are counting for the intersection is departure volume. Departure means the volume which is leaving the intersection. Okay, this is normally what you count. This is normally what you count. Okay, like always you count departure volume. But departure volume in some cases is not the actual demand of the highway or the actual demand of the intersection. For example, if you have demand over the capacity, okay, the demand has gone over the capacity, there's a traffic jam, a very long queue in front of the signal, and you are counting vehicles which are leaving the intersection. How many vehicles can leave the intersection? Maybe 100 every 5 minutes. This is maximum. So your count maximum goes up to 100, and you are taking 100 vehicles per 5 minutes, not a problem. Okay, there is no traffic jam. This will be your observation then, but you are ignoring the 200 vehicles which are stuck in the queue. You are ignoring the 200 vehicles which are stuck in the queue. So when this condition happens, when demand exceeds the capacity, when there's traffic jam, congestion on the road, then you should not, then demand is not taken by departure volume, demand is taken by arrival volume. So we want to know how many vehicles are coming towards the intersection, not how many are leaving. Well, leaving is at most capacity. We want how many vehicles are coming. Some of them will leave, some of them will get stuck. So we want to know that. Okay, we want to know that how many vehicles are actually coming, okay, to the intersection. So we need arrival volume. Now, how do we know that there's a traffic jam on the intersection? How do we know that there is oversaturated? I called it earlier oversaturated conditions, and here they are calling it unstable queue buildup condition. Unstable because when you reach in this condition, queue keeps on getting bigger and bigger every minute. So this is unstable and queue buildup because queue is building up. So how do I know the conditions are oversaturated, the demand has exceeded capacity, and there's unstable queue buildup? How do I know that? Now you can have two types of intersections: signalized, unsignalized. Whether you have intersection with a signal or without a signal. If you have an intersection with a signal, then the indication of queue buildup is that a vehicle arriving during red interval cannot pass in the next green phase. The vehicle which has arrived during a red interval cannot pass in the next green interval. So a vehicle has to wait for more than one red time to get its turn to pass. You arrived, but you are so far in the queue that by the time you reach to the intersection, the signal becomes red again. So you are stopping for more than one red phase. So if you see vehicles are not getting a chance to pass the intersection in the immediate or the next green phase, this is an indication of queue buildup condition for signals. If you have unsignalized intersections, roundabout stop signs, then obviously there's no green and red time. And in that case, you count the number of vehicles in the queue after after some frequency, with some frequency. Okay, so for example, you count the number of vehicles in the queue after every 2 minutes. If you feel or if you observe that number of vehicles in the queue keep on increasing after every count. So now it was 5. After 2 minutes, it became 7. After 2 minutes, it became 10. So with every count, the number of vehicles in the queue is increasing. That means it's a queue buildup condition. Okay. So if you reach any of these conditions, depending upon your type of intersection, then you should go for arrival volume as a demand. Okay. For signalized intersection, vehicles waiting for more than one red phase means now you need to take arrival volume. And for unsignalized intersection, if the queue keeps on extending with time, that it means queue buildup condition, take arrival volume. Now you need arrival volume, so that means you should count the number of vehicles which are arriving to the intersection. But there's a problem. Let's say this is my stop line. This is my stop lines. Okay. First vehicle in the queue here, second here, third here, fourth here. As the vehicles keep on coming, the queue is going back and back. The end of the queue is going back and back. So every new vehicle arrived is in a new position from the queue. It is the back of the queue, right? So back of the queue is shifting backwards with every vehicle in the queue, right? Every new vehicle is shifting, is elongating the queue. Okay, so with every vehicle arriving, your observation point is going back and back. You are trying to observe the vehicles which are joining the queue. So your observation point is shifting backwards. Then signal turns green or the vehicles have a chance to move, and this vehicle will now shift here. So the queue has now shifted forward. At some point of time, the queue will shift forward as well. So now you have to run back to this point and you start the counting from here, and again with every vehicle the queue is shifting backwards. So the queue itself is dynamic. You are trying to measure the vehicles, count the vehicles which are joining the queue, but queue itself is moving forward and backward. It is dynamic. So your observation point is not fixed. That means you have a problem now. Okay, like it is not at all convenient when you are moving forward and backward. Obviously your observations will be disturbed. So it is good for your health. If you want to exercise, this is good for it. It's not good for traffic observations. So like I said earlier, even in queue buildup conditions, you count departure volume and you calculate arrival volume. So arrival volume is calculated, it's never counted. Okay, and departure volume is always counted. How you can calculate arrival volume using this equation? Okay, so what is the equation? First of all, VAI means arrival volume during time period I. So I means time period. Okay, any particular time period. You will count departure volume in the same time period, VDI, departure volume in the same time period. NQI, number of vehicles in the queue at the end of time period I. At the end. Okay, only at the end. And NQI minus 1 means number of vehicles in the queue at the end of previous time period or at the start of this time period, you can say like this. Okay, so NQI means number of vehicles in the queue at the end. NQI minus means NQI I minus 1 means number of vehicles in the queue at the start of the time period. Okay, so you need 2 counts of vehicles in the queue at the end and the start, and you need number of vehicles departing through the intersection in the time period. So we have an example here. Okay, the volume is counted from 4 to 6 p.m. 15 minutes intervals. First interval 50 vehicles, no vehicles in the queue, departure vehicle 50, so arrival is also 50 because nobody is in the queue, right? So whenever you have no vehicles in the queue before and after, so arrival will become equal to departure. 4:15 to 4:30, same thing. 55 vehicles, no vehicles in the queue before, no vehicles in the queue after. 55 is at arrival volume. Okay. Otherwise, the arrival volume will be changed according to number of vehicles which are stuck in the queue or which joined from the queue. 4:30 to 4:45, 62 vehicles departed, left, 5 in the queue. So how many came? 62 which left and 5 which are in the queue, 67. 67 came to the intersection. Okay. Next time interval, 65 departed, 10 in the queue. Out of these 10, 5 is a count from the previous interval. Out of these 10, 5 is the count from the previous interval. So how many came in this time interval? 65 plus 10 minus 5. 10 minus 5. Okay, reducing the count of the queue from the previous interval. So 70 came in this time interval. Okay, same thing for the next time interval. 60 plus 12 which are in the queue minus 10 from the previous queue. So 60 plus 2, 62. Okay, and so on. And now you can see in the end there was no queue. In the last two time intervals, no queue. So in the last time interval, 55 departed, no queue before, no queue after, so 55 arrived. Okay. Now you can see at the starting of the observation period at 4 p.m. as well as 6 p.m. there is no vehicles in the queue. There are no vehicles in the queue at the start and at the end of the time intervals. At 4 p.m. From 4 to 4:15, the first time interval, there is no vehicle in the queue before and after, and as well as the last time interval, no vehicle in the queue before and after. So in that case, total arrival and total departure volume becomes equal. If the first time interval and the last time interval do not have any number of vehicles in the queue before and after, then the total arrival volume and total departure volume, total will become equal. So you can see 469 here, 469 here. Okay. If you want to apply the equation which I showed you in the next slide, in the previous slide, okay, to this case, so I need VAI, these numbers, this number, I need this number, 67. So VDI, 62, plus number of vehicles in the queue in this time interval, 5, minus number of vehicles from the previous time interval, which is 0. So 62 plus 5 minus 0. Okay, and then this one, 65 plus 10 minus 5. Okay, so 70. What else I wanted to explain? So you apply the equation, it was 0, and there was one more point. Arrival is becoming equal to departure. Okay, well done. Okay, then we have some special points for related to the counting period for signalized intersections. Now, good thing about signalized intersection is movements happen in different times, right? You have different green times given to different movements. So you can assign one observer to multiple movements which are happening in different times. So number of observers can be reduced greatly at the intersection, at the signalized intersection. Okay. So you can reduce the requirement for observers by assigning observers to different movements which are happening in different signal phases. You have to keep one thing in mind about the counting period. Total counting period, like I showed you in the previous slide, it was 2 hours, right? 2 hours, 120 minutes, or how many seconds? 7,200 seconds. Okay. Now this counting period must be a multiple of cycle length. Your total counting period must be a multiple of cycle length. Okay. So what is cycle length? I have told you earlier as well when you are discussing delay. Cycle length is the total time taken by the signal to complete all the movements or to complete all the indications. Okay, total time taken by the signal to complete all the movements or to complete all the indications, red, yellow, and green, and so on. So let's say the total time taken by the signal to complete the movements is 60 seconds. 60 seconds means 1 minute, right? 1 minute. So you have to count or you have to set your total counting period for volume. That's a multiple of 60 minutes. Okay, so either it can be 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay, but if you select, let's say 100 seconds, so 100 seconds is not a multiple of 60 seconds. So this will be crossed out. You cannot do this. Okay, this counting period is not good. Why? Why are we saying this? If your counting period is a multiple of cycle length, so for example, cycle length 60 seconds, 1 minute, counting period 5 minutes. Now what will happen? 5 minutes means 5 cycles, right? 5 cycles. So in one cycle, every movement has the green. In one cycle, every movement has a green. So in 5 cycles, all movements will have green 5 times. All movements will have green 5 times. Okay. So whatever difference you find in the volume is because of the actual volume itself and not because of signal timing. But let's say signal timing, cycle length 1 minute, interval you have selected is, let's say, 700 seconds. So 700 seconds is not a multiple of cycle length. It's not multiple of 60 seconds, right? And again, 60 seconds is just an example. Okay, you can have a cycle length of any number of seconds. Okay, I'm just giving you an example which is easier to understand. So cycle length 60 seconds, counting period 700 seconds. 700 seconds means how many minutes? Can someone tell me? 700 seconds means how many minutes? 11 minutes and 40 seconds, right? 700 seconds means 11 minutes and 40 seconds. 1 minute means 1 cycle length. So all phases will have green times 11 times. 11 minutes, 11 times green for all the movements. In the remaining 40 seconds, the extra 40 seconds, some movements will receive extra green time and some others will not, because you did not complete the cycle. So the cycle timing did not complete for all the movements. So in the last 40 seconds, you will have extra phases for few movements, and some other movements will have less number of phases. So what will happen? You will observe, okay, this particular movement has more volume. This particular movement may have more volume because it has more green time. It received more green time than the other movements. So to avoid this, we make the counting period multiple of cycle length. We make the counting period multiple of cycle length so that all phases receive green same number of time, and the difference in volume is because of the actual volume and not because we did not count the phases completely. Okay. Now we have said earlier that you may give breaks to the observer as well. Okay. The actual counting period should also be a multiple of cycle length without the break. The total counting period should be a multiple of cycle length, and when you take out the break, the actual counting period remaining after that should also be a multiple of cycle length. So for example, total counting period 5 minutes, break 1 minute. So actual counting period 4 minutes. If you have a cycle length of 60 seconds, that means 1 minute, then both periods are okay. Total period multiple of cycle length 5 minutes, multiple of cycle length. Okay. And the actual counting period without the break 4 minutes, again multiple of cycle length. Okay, so in that case it's fine. Now let's say your cycle length is 70 seconds. Okay, let me give you another example so that it's easier for you to understand. Let's say your cycle length is 70 seconds. So you selected the total counting period 700 seconds. 700 is a multiple of 70, no problem. Total counting period, no problem. From 700 seconds, you are giving 100 seconds of delay. 100 seconds of delay. So remaining is 600. 600 is not a multiple of 70. So now you are wrong. Your counting period is wrong. The actual counting period is wrong. So your total counting period as well as the actual counting period without the break should be a multiple of cycle length. Now sometimes you have actuated signals. Actuated signal means you have signals which are operated with sensors and detectors. So these signals keep on changing their cycle length according to volume of traffic. Volume increases, cycle length increases. Volume decreases, cycle length decreases. So in that case, cycle length is not one number, it's a range. From that range, you take the maximum value, and your counting period should be at least 5 times of the maximum cycle length. If you have an actuated signal, you have a range of cycle length. because the cycle length is changing according to volume. From that range, take the maximum value, and your counting period should be at least 5 times of that maximum value. The maximum value is, let's say, 100 seconds. Then your counting period should be at least 500 seconds or more. Okay. And since the cycle length is changing, so this is the only thing we can do. You will select the total counting period and the actual counting period as per your own convenience. There is no law or there is no rule for selecting multiple types of cycle length, because cycle length itself is not changing, or cycle length itself is changing. It's not a constant. So even if you select multiple of maximum cycle length, the actual cycle length may be less than that. Okay. So 5 times the maximum cycle length, and that's it for actuated signals which are operated with sensors. Now with actuated signals, we have in actuated signals, it may happen that you observe some phases more times than the other because the actual cycle length was not a multiple of your counting period. But it is fine. It is fine for actuated signals because the phases which have more green time are actually the phases which have more volume as well. In actuated signals which are operated with sensors, the phases which have more green time actually have the high volume as well. So this factor of not having equal number of phases for all movements is compensated, nullified. Okay. So actuated signals, we have some different considerations. Okay. So this is it. I will move on to the remaining part tomorrow, inshallah. I'm going for the attendance. Section 2, people from section 2. Hissa Ahmad, Ali Khalil. Okay, Kusay is here. Yusuf Nidam.
Yes, doctor.
Okay, Hawra is here. Ali Muhammad. Okay, Sadiq Abdul Hussain. Okay, Bayan Yusuf. Okay, Balkis Hamad. Okay, Hala Munir. Abdul Rahman Muhammad. Sara Ali. Muntazir Hussain. Saleh Mehdi. Okay. Ahmad Muhammad Mahdi. Okay. Sara Khamis. Zainab Ali Ahmad. Okay. Section 1. Who is from section 1? Susan.
Doctor, I'm from Ali Hussein.
Okay, Susan, Ali Hussain. Okay, only 2 from section 1. Okay, thank you. See you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.